All right, thanks for joining. I'd like to welcome Dr. Russ Van Maele. He is a physician with LifeForce, a company that combines biomarker testing with access to a functional medicine doctor, physician like Dr. Van Maele, which is, believe it or not, very hard to find that combination, even in 2023, because very few people have access to someone with your knowledge and skill set. Tell us a little bit about how you got to LifeForce, what your typical patient population is like, and your experience of how you got to here.
I have been, doing functional medicine pretty much ever since I started residency. I was kind of the oddball out, talking to people about their diets and talking to the people about their exercises and trying to be a proponent of getting people off of medication if it wasn't necessary, as opposed to just perpetuating having more and more medications and whatnot. So,
Like deprescription, as we call it. Yes.
say that again.
Deprescribing, as we call it.
Driving, I like that. That's
Yeah.
what I try to do every single day.
Yeah, I
So
hear that that's a term thrown around on Twitter. Thank you, Twitter, for teaching me that term, but I love it. Deprescribing.
yeah, and honestly, I had a patient the other day who it came off of in the span of 3 months, came off of his depression medications, two depression medications, and cholesterol medication in the span of 3 months.
That's incredible. I mean, that's what people want.
That's what people want, but they don't know that they can do it.
Yeah,
That's
because it's not
that's
talked about.
I love to kind of harness everything that, in my opinion, God has given us to access our health, right? The
Yeah.
sunlight, the dirt on the ground, being able to have blood flow with exercise, eating quality foods. Once you harness all those things, that's what functional medicine is all about, and that's how you get the best out of your body, and that's how health span is a big topic of conversation these days. That's how we do it. So
Wow.
it doesn't
Right.
need to be super complicated. We can make it pretty simple.
Let's dive into the simple stuff that has been overcomplicated. Let's start real big here. Ultra processed food consumption is estimated to be about 60% of a typical American's diet. So
Mm.
what's at stake if we continue down this path for any given person's health?
Oh my gosh. So as you said that, a buck just is walking through my backyard. So
Amazing.
that's super cool. Sorry,
Very
I got a little distracted there. Um, so processed food. Okay, I am not looking at processed food out my window right now. Chickens out in the backyard, and now a deer. So that is what people need to get to, is get away from processed food. And if we continue to eat processed food, we're going to have everything that is, on the upslope, which is the true epidemic going on, which is
Yeah.
insulin resistance, which is diabetes, right? Hypertension, depression, heart disease, Alzheimer's. There's a list. Oh my gosh, there's another buck. Oh my gosh. I'm having a blast. This is the best interview ever. So
That it's not hunting season yet.
I know it's not hunting season yet, but this is great. So uh, all these things are going to continue to be on the rise if we continue to eat the way we do. And I
Right.
always start with all my patients with, hey, what are you eating? It could be as simple as that, just something that's absolutely robbing you of your energy, your sleep, your exercise, your sex drive. It
Mhm.
could be as simple as just the foods that you're putting in your body. And I tell people, you got to make multiple decisions throughout the day, every single day, of, are you serving your body, or are you, putting toxins in your body?
Right. Yeah.
Arguing that most people are putting toxins in their body, aka processed foods, which it's no surprise it's going to lead to these chronic diseases that we see over and over and over again.
Yeah. I have these conversations with my patients every day. I work in the home health setting. So my typical patient has all of those things that you just listed, and they don't want them, but no one's really talking to them about how to get rid of them. So when I ask that simple question to my patients, it makes sense to them when we talk about it in plain language. Hey, what are you eating? Like, if your grandparents didn't recognize it, it's probably not great for you. So like, how can we make some simple changes today to impact your health, to help you get to the place where you want to be? Yeah. Thank you for setting the scene for this conversation. Okay. So this next one, you are not the typical doctor. And I got to say this before I answer this or ask this question. In medical school, nutrition is not a big piece of medical school. From what I hear, I've never met a physician, or I've never met a healthcare professional where they're like, you know, we had a solid talk about nutrition in many courses. Like, that's just not the case. So I don't want to demonize the profession, because I don't think that you are well taught the skills unless you went and found out about them on your own. So question, what's missing from the typical doctor spiel about nutrition and diet? The pulse on Twitter that I'm getting is that most people are told to limit salt, eat less, exercise more, and the conversation usually stops there. So they're left bewildered and feel like they have no control over what's going on with their health. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, obviously that's the typical response that you get when you go into one of your primary care doctors is, hey, you need to eat less and exercise more. And it's a shame, because a lot of the times even the doctors, you look at them and they're not even healthy to begin with. So
right, they're struggling too, right?
And that's why I try to like be humble with all my patients and be like, hey, I'm not perfect at this. I don't expect you to be perfect at this. Like, are there like days and sometimes weeks where I go without exercising because I'm in a rut where I know I need to be exercising, but it's hard to get back into it? Yeah, it happens all the time. But, you know, we're humans and we gotta get back on track. And that's what I'm trying to, you know, promote with every single person too. But your typical, you know, eat less salt for high blood pressure, I couldn't disagree more. Okay. To a degree, it makes sense, but people have no idea with the foods that they're eating, how much salt is actually added to these foods. Like if you were to make that food yourself, there would be no chance that you would add that amount of salt to that food. There would be no chance you'd add that sugar to that food.
Right.
And I get people to try. I'm a big proponent of making your own food. And number two is like my thing for when people are shopping is, if you don't know what's in your food, or if you can't tell me what you're buying when you're buying food, you shouldn't be buying it. It's going back to your, you know, if your grandparents knew what it was, then that's a good thing. And if they didn't, then that's a bad thing. So you got to tell me that every single thing that's in your food, every ingredient that's in your food. For example, I picked an egg out of my coop today. What are all the ingredients, food ingredients, in that egg? An egg.
It's an egg. It's real food, right?
Yeah, it's real food, and it's not processed. And I'm the first person to touch that food. The more hands touch your food, the worse it gets.
Ooh, I like that. That's another little good analogy to use.
The telephone game, you ever played that?
Yeah.
I want to play that as a kid, but I definitely played that within the past couple of years, right? So the first person, it's very clear what the sentence or phrase is, right? By the time it gets to you and you're the last person there, it's jumbled up and it's nothing even close to what it started with. That's what's happening with our food industry.
Yeah. I don't know how we got to this place so fast, just over a few decades, but we're here and to address it.
We can do something about it. We can make better decisions about what we eat. And obviously it's going to be a more expensive thing because these unhealthy foods are very cheap, right?
Although it can be. I mean, I don't even know anymore. Like I go and I love to cook at home. This is a huge thing for me. This is how I grew up. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for teaching me and my sisters how to cook at home. I have 5 sisters and we all cook. And I go to the grocery store and I look and I just for fun, I'm like, okay, how much is a bag of Fritos? They're like $4.99 right now. I can get a pound of ground beef for about the same price. It'll leave me satiated. It's good for my body. I feel good about myself and it's a meal. So I do understand that high quality food can be expensive, but processed food is also ridiculously expensive right now. So I don't even know if that argument holds true anymore.
It is. I would agree with you on that. I'm a huge Costco guy, and
Yeah, same.
it's dangerous walking, on the outskirts, when you're
It is.
outside the produce section, and then they feed you too, and they're like, just try a little bite. We know you.
I know, because it's delicious, right? It's designed that way.
But there's ways to shop and there's ways not to shop. But at the end of the day, you should know every ingredient in your shopping cart.
Yeah.
Period.
I do think it is a good challenge to go like whatever your budget is and try to buy those like real food items, like animal protein, fruit and vegetables to tolerance if that's your thing, and high quality dairy. And I think people would be surprised at how much it costs versus what they usually spend, because sometimes it's actually less. So
I
anyway,
agree. Tell everybody too, it's an investment. No
yeah,
matter, you're not just fueling your body, you're investing in the long term.
exactly, right? We know like the long-term cost of caregivers of being unhealthy, and it's really expensive. But I guess like everything, life is super expensive right now. So I do feel for people who are struggling with groceries, but there are some simple choices that we can make even at the grocery store. All right, next, kind of related. So according to the CDC, 96 million, that's a lot, Americans have pre-diabetes. And
Mhm.
about 80% of them don't even know it. So what tests can a patient ask for at their next doctor visit to see if they are pre-diabetic, and what can they do about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first thing, and I give credit to a lot of people that are first even researching this in the first place, because it means you're in the right spot. So most
Yeah.
people are scared of checking their levels, and they
Mhm.
should, because we are at a time that we have the knowledge to be able to reverse this. It's never too late to check your labs. I check people's labs at 70 years old and
Wow.
80 years old, and they can improve in that sense. Okay, you're never too late to get your labs checked. There's so many labs that can get checked to look at somebody's insulin resistance, and that's a
Mhm.
big topic of conversation that I have. It starts with a basic lab panel, like a complete metabolic panel, just to see if you have a high fasting glucose. That's the easiest one to check, or even a finger prick, glucose test, point of care glucose test. Is it high? Is it not? And you can jump into A1C, your 3-month average of your blood sugars. And you can get a little bit more into the weeds and look at maybe a fasting insulin.
Mhm.
Not too many practitioners are going to be checking that, but that is one of the first signs to say, hey, you have really high insulin. It hasn't affected your health in the sense like your A1C isn't elevated. Your glucose isn't even that elevated, but you have an A1C that's almost 20, which is way, way, way too high. And you have like pre-diabetes right now. And if you
Right.
continue on this track, it's not going to end up well for you.
Right.
And there's other tests with, like, we call it oral glucose tolerance tests, which are a little bit more time consuming. You have to actually be in an office to be doing
Okay.
those.
Okay.
You basically drink Coca-Cola and check your glucose and insulin after certain time periods, and your glucose should go up and then come down. But people that have insulin resistance, that glucose goes up and it does not come down very efficiently, because you're pushing the insulin resistance where you're not able to suck in that glucose into your cells because
Right.
you have a complete insulin problem.
Okay.
We talk about hormones all the time. Insulin is one thing I talk about more than anything.
I wish my patients had more access to physicians like you who are ordering these kind of tests and talking about why we're taking them or why you are ordering them. You talked about the fasting insulin test, and sadly, it's not a test that a lot of physicians are ordering for their patients right now. And it's a shame because it's telling a story that like a fasting glucose test cannot. So I'm glad that was part of your response. That's definitely something that I now ask for at my like yearly checkup. Whereas like a few years ago, I didn't know about it and no physician was asking me if I should take it.
In another, so say you run into that issue where your physician doesn't want to check the fasting insulin, or it's not covered under
Yeah.
your insurance. A basic cholesterol panel can tell you a lot about your insulin too.
Oh,
So
okay.
basic cholesterol panel is going to have your HDL, total cholesterol, LDL, the triglycerides are in there too. And there's a lot of different reasons why triglycerides could be higher. But one of the main reasons why triglycerides are high is because of hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin. So no, it's not going to tell you what your insulin is, but it can tell you if your insulin is a red flag, likely on your labs, if your triglycerides are way higher than your HDL. So that's something I'm coaching throughout my patients all the time is, hey, I'd love to get this to a 1-to-1 ratio because our insulin is probably going to be at a range where you and I are both happy with.
Yeah. Can we really simplify this for the audience? Because
Sure.
all clients watch this channel, and if someone's insulin is high, why would it be high? Like, what are the foods that are contributing to very high insulin levels over time? I don't mean like I eat a cup of cherries and my insulin goes up, and then I'm metabolically healthy and my body can just bring it back down. If someone's insulin levels are high all the time, what does that indicate, and what's causing that?
Yeah, so that is the basis on insulin resistance. Your body is resistant to insulin. It's no longer able to attach to its receptor and pull in glucose. So the bare bones of what insulin does as a hormone, it's secreted from our pancreas. But when we eat sugar or glucose or carbohydrates, bread, pizza, pasta, these things that get broken down into glucose, our body and our pancreas has to secrete insulin.
Okay.
Now, in a normal world where we're metabolically healthy, exactly what you said, when you eat a cherry that has sugar in it, so your glucose in your bloodstream is going to go up. But your pancreas secretes insulin and therefore brings that sugar right back down to a very healthy level. Now, take the same cherry that you eat for you, but now somebody with insulin resistance eats that cherry, just to simplify things. Their glucose goes up, their insulin comes up too, but now they can't pull that glucose out of their bloodstream as efficiently. First off, their blood sugar is going to be higher baseline compared to you. Their glucose is still going to go up, but now that curve, where your curve might be this of glucose, because your insulin works very efficiently at pulling that glucose out of your bloodstream, insulin resistance looks more like this, with a very slow curve. So A, glucose is not being efficiently pulled out of the bloodstream, but B, your body has to crank out a ton more insulin just to act on that receptor, because now your insulin receptors have basically sucked into your cells and your body is flooding your system with insulin in order to do the same thing for somebody that is insulin sensitive that could do very efficiently.
Okay. So would you say like this is kind of the story that's going on with someone that is pre-diabetic?
Absolutely. And pre-diabetes is a huge red flag. It's not like you should not wait until you have diabetes in order to have this conversation with a doctor.
Right.
It's a spectrum of bad or worse.
Right.
Diabetes is
And I
not.
think that's a common misconception. I sadly hear patients say this at least once a week to me. I'm only pre-diabetic, so I'm okay. My doctor is just kind of watching it. And I'm like, well, what is watching? And they don't even have an answer, right? They don't know because they're being told that it's okay. They're not diabetic yet.
Exactly. But it's like you take a really overweight person, and this is a different example. You take a really overweight person and you let them see themselves in a day in the life of their same body 50, 100 pounds lighter. Their eyes would be so open to, oh my gosh, this is life with 50 or 100 pounds less of body weight on me. My knees feel better. I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. Everything is great. I want to have that same pill for a diabetic or pre-diabetic, because maybe you're on the verge of getting diabetes, maybe you're not, but there's so much more to gain when you can improve those sugar markers and improve that insulin, and they have no idea what they're missing out.
Because until you feel something, it's hard to imagine like what you're missing out on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This next question is kind of like a segue into this deprescribing. What should we be eating? If you are trying to, even if someone who's healthy, what would you recommend people eat? What would you recommend they stay away from? And then in your patient who maybe is trying to get healthier and try to get off of their blood pressure medication or their statin or whatever else your typical patient is taking, how do you steer them in the right direction? Can you be specific with the types of foods that you recommend and the types of foods you recommend people stay away from?
Yeah, great question. So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about knowing what's in your food. Very, very important. So the way I practice is I don't want to tell anybody like you have to eat this and you have to eat that. My biggest thing is I want to tell you what's harming you and hurting you more than what can maybe help you a little bit.
Okay.
So it's more so of like kind of cleaning your closet, just getting rid of the stuff that no longer serves you. So for me, there's really 4 of them that really I start with. So number 1 is always going to be sugar, processed foods. If you don't know how it got to that point, big red flag, you should not be eating it.
Okay.
So know your ingredients, every single ingredient in that food. And anything with added sugar has to go.
Like a Pop-Tart, for example?
Yeah, I people will say that.
Can we bring in Pop-Tarts to the conversation?
Yeah.
Right.
I ask your Pop-Tart lovers, what's in your Pop-Tart? And they usually go, strawberry puree, right? And there's 100 ingredients in a Pop-Tart that they have no idea that it's basically a science experiment that's going into their body. So know your ingredients. Number 2, I'm a big fan of getting people off of seed oils, which are a big proponent of these processed foods. Right. If it came from a seed, it's very hard to take a seed like a soybean. Look, if you look at a soybean and make it into oil, it's very difficult to do. Right? It takes chemicals, it takes heat, extraction. But
Russ, they come with nice names like grapeseed oil and vegetable oil. They sound healthy.
Oh, it comes from a plant, right? It's plant-based. The oils that you should be eating are always going to be olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. I'm a big fan of grass-fed butter, even beef tallow. Yeah. These are processed, minimally, the amount of work it takes to get that oil is very minimal.
Yeah.
And doesn't have chemical solvents or heat added to it to get to that point.
Right. They weren't made in a lab. They were literally just cold pressed or, butter is churned cream, right? So, yeah. So these minimally processed fats versus these chemically deodorized, produced fats that are, again, made in a lab and touched by many hands, as you would say.
Hands the better, right? And then the third one is going to be getting people off of alcohol. People have no idea how harmful alcohol is. And I get this all the time. I only drink 3 to 5 drinks a week. I'm like, all right, well, you know what it's doing to your cholesterol profile, right? You know what it's doing to say it's like somebody in their 30s, like us, right? What about your recovery? Are you sleeping? Does it make you more stressed out the next day because you didn't sleep?
Right.
Like, we're at a time in our lives where we need to we're grinding, right? We need to be on top of our game. But it's so socially acceptable to go out to the bars.
Right.
And people have no idea what they're missing out on for the next day and the day after. And then you can extrapolate that into years later, right? So I'm a big fan of, it's really hard to be abstinent from alcohol, like completely take it out. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll be the first to admit that. I just moved out of Lexington, Kentucky, the bourbon capital of the world, right?
Right.
I'm not going to say that I never drink alcohol, but I don't drink very often. And I don't think anybody really should drink that often because it's doing more harm than good.
Yeah. And I think this is a newer topic, and people have a lot of pushback on this one, but we're learning more about it, and the signs are pointing to it's really offering us no benefit.
Yeah, the pushback is from people that love drinking with
Right.
their,
Yeah,
it's anything, I love to do it, so I'm going to fight it because it's something I'm passionate about, regardless of what it does for me. Right.
yeah,
And then the last thing is, I get a lot of grief from a lot of people with this but grains.
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of grains. I ask people, what are you getting in a grain that you can't get from something else that's healthier for you?
right,
Right? I'm not going to spike your blood pressure. That doesn't contain gluten in it, which we know is an inflammatory protein.
right.
The amount of women that I talk to that are big bread eaters that have TSHs, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone, that pushing 4, even 5, nobody's going to treat them with thyroid medication. You can just optimize their diet, optimize their lifestyle, and their thyroid naturally improves because
Right.
gluten is toxic to the thyroid.
So imagine if that was like, if I was that patient and I went to the doctor,
Yeah.
if I had the choice, like, hey, here's path A, like you could naturally lower it with this sort of diet, or here's path B, here's a pill. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving people a choice. But when we typically go into the doctor's office, it's usually just like, here is this, it's going to help change
Mhm.
your hormone level. And there's not really a choice. The choice is either take the pill or don't take the pill.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
I
like,
love that your profession as a physician is changing, and this functional medicine doctor profession is definitely more available than it was even like a decade ago.
yeah, you sound like Morpheus from the Matrix. Like, do you want to take the blue pill or do you want to take the red pill? Right.
Yes, the Matrix.
The thing about functional medicine, though, most of us aren't, tied to the same time constraints that I would be if I was in my regular internal medicine office, where I have not very much time to chat with the patient. I got to go through a lot of information in a very short amount of time, and I'm not talking to somebody about. I'm checking the boxes of what I have to for insurance and for prior authorizations and things like that, which really have nothing to do with the person's health.
Totally.
Either there. So functional medicine, this space, we get most docs are allowed enough time to actually have a conversation where, if you offer that blue pill takes a lot of work and effort and dedication, but you can always get there. It's more of a coaching and guiding, and that's what people need more than anything.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. So it's like it doesn't actually even matter if medical schools started talking more about this stuff instead of focusing so much on pharmacology. Because even if they had the knowledge and the skills, you're still seeing 60 patients, excuse me, like on your clinic days. You have very little time, and you don't even have enough time to talk about this important stuff. So
Yeah, and
it's
I
a
think
I don't know how we fix that.
no.
But
And there is a great marriage between functional medicine and Western medicine. Like it's no, shock that medications save lives. Like there's definitely an importance for Western medicine, and pharmacology is very, very important. And also like knowing how to get somebody off of that, knowing the mechanism of action of these drugs and how they work and how to do that naturally is actually very important. So I do think there's a combination of two. I hope that we can get there soon. I try to do it when I talk to my patients.
yeah.
Um, it helps to have that medical school residency internal medicine background. Still got a long way to go, but I'm excited on where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly learning. Any healthcare provider that says they know it all, it's a red flag. Find a new one, right? So
Totally,
yeah,
totally agree.
we got to set the ego aside and just keep learning. Um,
Yes.
All right, so a couple more questions. If someone's committed to changing their diet and lifestyle, you just said 4 things that they should avoid.
Right.
If they want to get healthier, like where do they start? What are like 3 like simple actionable steps that they can start today?
So you can take that avoid list that I just mentioned.
Okay, the avoid list.
Yeah, the avoid list. And go to your fridge, go to your pantry, right? A lot of us work from home these days, so it's very easy to just like trickle over to our, pantry, to our fridge and just eat all day long.
Right. Oh,
Go in there and clean it out. If I tell people, if it's around you, if you're the type of person that keeps pretzels in a bowl on the table all the time, or candy in a bowl on the table all the time, you're gonna grab it, you're gonna eat it.
yep.
Even me, like if somebody puts pie out on the table, uh, and I walk by it, more often than not, I'm gonna grab a piece. But I have that self-discipline 90% of the time to not put those things in my home.
Right.
So that,
Yeah, we can't go to Costco hungry.
exactly. Oh my gosh, that's dangerous. Very, very dangerous. The next thing I would say is take an investment in your health and in your food. Like, don't be the Uber Eats guy or girl. Don't be the Grubhub like convenience. Make it a hobby to create meals.
Yeah.
And if you don't like that, and I know you already mentioned it, ground beef and onions is one of my favorite meals.
Right.
It's simple, it's simple, it's easy, it fills you up, and it's extremely nutritious for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, ground beef, and it's something that I can go back to. It's not something I really get sick of either, right? I
Exactly.
think that there's a lesson in there, right? Perhaps we should be eating it, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then the next thing I would say is just move, but find something you like to do.
Right, right.
I have a Thursday night volleyball tournament on the beach. Every Thursday we play, and I love sports. I'm very competitive, and I will always be that way. But I love doing things where I'm getting a workout, but I'm also doing something I love to do. Find something that you love to do, that you're moving and you're active. Don't think that the only way to get healthy is everybody's like, oh, I just need to start running. And I'm like, you hate running. Why would you want to do that? Right? That's not going to last. It might last for a week or two, but if you don't like running, then that's not going to be a great, health strategy for you.
No,
But if you like rowing, or you like mountain biking, if you like playing sports, sign up for a league. It's
right.
good for your mental health and social network too, right? You're doing so much more good to yourself if you're doing something where you're moving and you actually enjoy doing
Right.
it.
It can be sustainable because it's something that you want to do. It's not going to be a chore. I tell my patients this all the time when they're just getting started on their like fitness journey. It's like, I don't care if your neighbor tells you you need to be playing pickleball. If you don't like it, find something you do like,
Yeah,
I think it's
exactly.
really fun. I want to try it. But yeah, you gotta choose what makes you happy. And that's gonna look different for every person, whether it's running or playing baseball, or I love strength training and walking. So
Yeah,
it's a personal preference. So I love that.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Find out what you like to do. And then the last thing I'll say is write it down.
Yeah.
We've heard this like growing up in school and whatnot. You more likely to remember something and actually do something when it's written down. I
Yeah.
wrote down my goals, and they're in my office, of things I wanted to do and achieve. And I wrote down my goals. Some are short term, some are long term, some have been accomplished, some are going to take more years to be accomplished. But when you write down your goals, you're kind of pointing your northern, your direction in your northern star. Like, what is going to drive me to be healthy? That I wanted. One of mine was like do a triathlon, and I
Mhm.
did a half Ironman in northern Michigan a few years ago, and I want to do it again because it made me healthy. And it was a huge accomplishment. I'm like, a half Ironman's a heck of a lot of miles. I want to say I could do a full Ironman, but I'll take a half for now. But dang, like I felt so accomplished when I did that. And that was something I was able to check off my box. And that was my personal thing, what I wanted to do. Find
Right.
out what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah, and you gotta go try things, and you're gonna find things that you don't like, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, Last big question, and then I kind of want to tell people like how I know you so that they can know how to find you or someone like you. Um, so you and your wife are expecting your first child. Congratulations. And when you and I met, I overheard you talking to my friend Eleni about how you're really helping your wife kind of like guide her pregnancy by helping her with like what to eat and what to supplement her body with. So can you tell us like what that's looked like for you guys?
Yes, yes. So that has been a roller coaster, let me tell you. This is her first child, my first child. So we're very, very excited. But I will say nutrition is always at the top of the list. So trying our best to fight some of the cravings too, of just eating natural foods.
Yeah.
Um, she's not perfect and I don't expect her to be perfect, but the majority of the time we're eating natural foods. And the good thing for us, it wasn't a huge transition because we were already eating healthy to begin with. But I basically have tried to recreate a prenatal vitamin in some of the supplements that we've added, and then with foods too. So we use a lot of desiccated organs for nutrition, liver, blood capsules to make sure that she has enough iron stores for the baby boy, which is, I don't know if I told you it's a boy.
I knew when you and I had met like a month ago. Awesome. Wow.
So he needs his iron. We're doing like blood capsules that have like a mix of like liver and blood in them. Then liver is the most nutritious thing pound for pound on the planet. So there's a lot of that in there. We, grow our own eggs. We eat a lot of eggs. Choline is another thing in a prenatal that needs to be in there for the baby's brain development.
Right.
We eat a ton of eggs. They're very, very healthy food.
Yeah.
It's trying our best to stay away from sugar, making sure she's well hydrated, and then supplementing a little bit here and there and adding like a good B vitamin to make sure she gets enough B12 and folate. But basically, I don't like the concept of a prenatal that here's this one pill that you can take and it doesn't matter anything else that you do, as long as you take this prenatal, you're good. And even I'll be honest, I'm not trying to throw our OB-GYN under the bus, but his nutrition talk is not good. He's excellent. Like his bedside manner is incredible. But I would be pushing diet and exercise in a pregnant woman so much more than he is. Yeah. I don't even know if he might have mentioned prenatal, but it's so important for growing that child. Yeah. So we're kind of all over the place, but it's the same stuff that we talk about: eating natural foods, making sure we're eating more of the foods that are going to go into growing that baby, and just staying hydrated and moving. She's finally able to exercise a little bit more now, which is thank God, because it's good for her mood and her energy, and she's sleeping better. So, but that blood flow is a big deal. The same blood flow that's going throughout your body is now going through the placenta into that baby, and that's very, very important for the growth of that child.
Yeah, so the theme here that I'm hearing from you is to keep it simple. We need to be eating real foods, staying away from ultra processed foods as best we can, understanding we're humans and we're gonna have, you and I met at a birthday party. So, had a great time that day, but that's not like our day-to-day life, right? But yeah, I mean, keeping it simple. And I think when we package it that way, it's so less intimidating for our patients. And improves their locus of control. Hey, I can do this. I can do this. If I can get to the grocery store or have someone else get there for me, I think I can start doing this.
Anyone can do this.
Yeah, we have to empower people too. So, how you and I met, you work for Life Force, and our mutual friend Courtney has a VC firm in LA, and he's invested in Life Force. So you came to his birthday party. So,
Yeah.
which was great. So tell us a little bit more about Life Force or that sort of model. And how can people find you? Like, do you have a YouTube channel where you're creating content, or are you on Twitter? I know you kind of are, and I'm encouraging you to spread your message a little more because there's a big audience out there who needs to hear what you have to say. Or do you have an Instagram account? Or are you not on socials at all?
To be honest, it was one of these things that I asked myself, is this serving me or is this not? And social media was not.
That's okay.
I have not been on Facebook or Instagram for a very long time, and I kind of see it that way. I don't have a YouTube channel yet, but that's very interesting. And I love Twitter, apps or X or whatever they call it now. But it is my favorite. I follow all the medical guys and girls that do the posts, and it's just a constant knowledge improvement. So I absolutely love Twitter. So I am on
there.
Yeah. And Life Force is a company that I work for, and you can go into lifeforce.com and sign up. You'll get your blood work checked. You'll see either myself or we have several awesome doctors that are, just think very similarly as far as, how to take care of your health in the most natural way possible. And I encourage you to just, kind of dip your toes in the water of your health journey and trying to get things going, because like giving somebody that blue pill or the red pill, you have no idea what you're missing out on if you're not doing the right thing.
Right. And I mean, like, we're not forced to do this stuff. Like, you can always try something like that and just be like, hey, it's not for me. I'd rather go back to the traditional system if it's working for you. And like, that's okay. Like, we have choice here. But it's good to know where to go if you want something a little bit more non-traditional.
Yeah, I love Life Force as the company is awesome. They've been great to me, and pretty sure our patients are enjoying the experience as well.
Yeah. Well, Russ, I can't thank you enough for coming on here, taking time out of your busy day. I'm so jealous you live in my hometown now, which is kind of funny. So we share that love for the great outdoors up there. And I can't wait to see what comes of you and your profession. Maybe we'll see you on YouTube soon and get to hear more of your content, and hopefully more on Twitter too. But if not, thank you so much. And it was really great to have you on here.
Thanks, Lindy. I appreciate the invite. This is great.